All right, so we're going to talk about guardrails.
Right.
I just need you to give him kind of a mandate of, I mean, what I suggested was that perhaps David and Faisal could look at kind of the cost issue, which seems to be a big concern, and some of the details, because what I'm hearing is metal-backed guardrail versus with wood face or wood with metal. Apparently there are a couple of older wooden guardrails that have just been exclusively wooden guardrails that were put in a number of years ago. Not sure the length of how long they've been in, but because of this winter, they're gonna require major repair.
Right, so
Where's that?
couple of different,
On a subdivision that's on the Lincoln Weston line.
so a couple of different things. So Faisal's been out actually sick all this week, but I talked to him a little bit last week.
Who was this?
Faisal, the gentleman I brought last time, I headed my transportation department.
I was here. Okay.
So we had kind of left that night, like the combination of the metal post with a wood facing guard seemed to be like the best combination of cost, practicality, and looks. You know, and there's other options, obviously, you know, wood with wood, cortan, all metal, but you know, that seemed to be kind of like fit the bill of the combination of all things. We got a series of emails, or an email that Betsy sent us that had a bunch of emails of kind of different people in town talking to other people in other towns, and
That was from Tom Cullen.
stuff about, like, you know, wood guardrails being about 8 times the price of metal guardrail, and just kind of like mixing the whole thing up. And that's the part of the knot that I kind of just want to talk about. Like, you know, we're real happy to, you know, work with you to get you your details and put that together with the cost estimate. And of course, the life, you know, that's a lifespan issue too, which was another dimension of this. But reading those chains of emails, again, and it's not just, I'm just not washing my hands of it, it's just like, how would we do this? There seems to be like, the waters are very muddy as far as people are shaping their questions and their arguments to what they prefer.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that those emails are the gospel. I mean,
No, it doesn't.
I think that you should come up with your own research and recommendations and cost estimating criteria, and I don't think that what's in those emails really matters.
And then,
You know, I don't think you have to worry about
okay,
it. Whatever you guys recommend is what we're going to go
Right.
with.
all right.
But the direction is that there's a whole list of different criteria. For example, on a scenic road, what might it be? What's the speed limit? What are the slopes and so forth? I mean, these are all different aspects of the same thing. The question is, it just seems like one solution isn't the best way of doing it.
There's got to be more than one solution, because there are different applications. There's
Right.
scenic road, there's different speed limits, there's different slopes,
Yeah.
there's curves, therere's straight.
There's room for some nuance.
Yeah, there is. You know, in general, you know, it does boil down to like wood, how much wood, you know, all wood posts, wood facing, or, you know, metal. It can be cortan or it can be galvanized at that point, you know, it doesn't matter. But, you know, our thoughts were to put together the details and specifications. So specifications would just be like the materials, but also kind of the applications for where the more scenic one would go. And then, again, you know, as Faisal mentioned, you don't have under your control high speed, what he would consider high speed roads that would define the other application.
Yeah.
Well, when does high speed start?
35?
I think north of 35.
Well, we have roads in town that are north of 35.
What, like Route 30
Yeah.
sometimes?
But
Actually, I think maybe part of Wellesley Road is 40.
No, no local roads get posted higher than 35.
Well, 117 goes up to 40, but that's the state.
That's what I mean, so it's the parts under your control.
Right. Yeah, this is gonna sound really stupid, but for like scenic roads, where it's relatively moderate speeds, lower speeds, you know, I mean, are stone walls completely out of the question?
It needs to be engineered to meet some guidelines. So, you know, the stone wall would have to be engineered to meet the guideline of a
So the
guardrail.
engineer would have to say, yeah, this will hold up when you.
Right, and then you know what you're gonna get.
It'd have to be reinforced.
You're gonna
sure.
get a metal.
You're gonna get
on
a
the
big
other
bill
side.
for all that specialized engineering, and you're gonna get a big wall, because some engineer's gonna have to stand it.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's gonna have to be able to stand impact and blah, 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 and everything else, and which,
Yeah.
which means it wouldn't be dry laid.
Honestly, it would be impractical, like the bill to do something like that, like no one would look at that and say, that's something I wanna pay for.
Well, we did one.
You're right.
Biogen site. That's one where we put in a stone guardrail.
We did.
But they paid for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we-
They paid for it, it's Biogen, not the town.
No, they paid for it.
Yeah.
I mean, but you're right, it became, you know,
Is that the one along,
Substantial
Adrian's
wall.
wall.
is that the one along,
Route 20.
yeah, that's pretty, you know, that's pretty noticeable.
So It's a wall.
But, you know, but that also, you're not worried about wood rot,
Yeah.
you're not worried about rust, you know, because even the metal ones have to be replaced periodically.
You know, but that on someone else's dime, that's a great solution.
Well, there's one place that's very unusual on Church Street, and right now the guardrails are police tape, and I'm not kidding, and it's been that way for like 2 years.
They're trying to
because-
figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah, because if there's a very
Yeah.
old stone retaining wall, because there's definitely a major drop down, and so the guardrail would have to go on top of this very old stone retaining wall. There's like no place for the guardrail.
Yeah.
So someone
Yeah, they
suggested
don't wanna do
extending the stone wall up and making that become the guardrail. But I'm sure it would be, like you said, a
Yeah,
huge.
that particular spot, you're gonna be into some pretty heavy engineering anyway,
Right.
because, you know, part of the criteria for when you do these guardrails is it's gotta have so much behind it, you know, for like the application to work in a standard thing, it can't be too close to the edge, because if you hit it, it'll just pop out the back. And over on Church Street, I think that's what they're getting into, so you're gonna have to have some sort of engineered wall that would, then you could put your, you know, you could either then extend the wall up higher, or just put a guardrail into that wall so that it doesn't pop out when you hit it.
Right. And
That one's a big challenge.
that almost begs, I mean, these guys are making general recommendations, situations like that.
No, that's a one-off.
That was just.
Right.
That's a one-off.
Figure it
So,
out.
you know, I was,
But on a standard way, I just, if you're gonna make recommendations, there's gonna be, you know, a couple of different options, you know, with their costs associated. Just throw a little stone wall into, you know, what the engineering would be, just for a general.
Lame duck.
Oh, no, come on.
Sorry, David. I'm kidding.
I can talk, we have a structural department, I can talk to Fossil about that, what it would entail.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, our structural department really just there to support our transportation group for these types of issues. You know, we're not,
Well, I mean, there's gotta be enough examples of people putting in stone walls, or like the
I-
Just ask Biogen.
Doesn't it have to be a concrete wall with a stone veneer
It
in order to do
wouldn't be
that?
Biogen, it's Boston Properties, they're the ones
Yeah.
that
and they
actually.
could sell it to us.
But I agree with what David's saying. If it isn't mentioned in there, 30 years from now, there'll be some little spot, and some, you know, town official will say, well, it has to be, you know, this. And it'll be, and we'll say, well, you know, and the people sitting on the board will say, well, perhaps it would be okay to do stone. No, we don't do stone. It has to, guardrail cannot be stone. It has to be this material. So I kind of like the idea of even if we never use it, it's a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, we could,
We built we rebuilt the stone wall thing on Church Street.
well,
It's not a guard.
Well, that's
You
the
know,
key, it's
real
not a
one.
guardrail.
I think David he's pointing to the idea that it's impractical the idea that it's not just, it's the
No, I understand.
engineering that has to go with it.
Well,
Because in basic terms, I mean, the amazing thing was, I don't know, along not Alphabet Lane, that goes to the fields, not the fields, yeah, the field school.
yeah,
school.
the one right along, it's right on you when you drive up. It is Alphabet Lane, it's
Yeah.
Alphabet Lane when it comes out.
You mean the old
That's
Case
not a
Case
guardrail.
Estates? So
There used to be,
wall.
no,
There's a
there used to
field
be
that's down
a picket,
below.
a wood picket
Right.
fence that was just crumbling. They replaced it with stone wall,
Which is
actually done
amazing.
fairly sympathetically, right? And that was actually the cheapest alternative, but I assume in this case that the wall would have to be.
Let me talk, because, you know,
We're not doing that.
not to reverse myself, but I think like,
Right, that's what it is.
when you do these things, like say we say, all right, here's a nice wood face guardrail that's appropriate for these types of locations. Here's the details and the specifications for that. Here's a higher speed, higher impact for areas where visual concerns are less and, you know, overall crash worthiness is more. And then maybe a non-completely engineered wall one, so that in 20 years, when this place is on cruise control, right? Like we pull out these subdivision standards that are 40 years old now,
Mhm.
we just go by them and we don't look at them.
Right.
Or delve into like, why do we really need to have, you know, whatever it says
Yeah, yeah.
on it. You know, someone else could say, look, here's some 3 options. If we do go for the wall, it'll just have to be engineered by whoever decides to do it. But it is an option.
But it is an option, yeah.
Well,
I
there is
agree with
one,
Dave.
there is another point, and this sort of goes back to what Dave was talking about, and that is the wall on Route 20 is made for traffic that's going at about 45 to 50 miles an hour. That's a reinforced concrete wall with a stone veneer. But if the speed limit is like 25 or 30 miles an hour, you wouldn't need the same, logic would say you wouldn't need the same kind of resistance, you know, for the slower traffic. But maybe that's not true, but I mean, that
The other thing is, you got one set of problems if it's a freestanding stone wall. It's another set if it's a stone wall that's on, up against an
A retaining
embankment.
wall.
Yeah.
Like,
What I'm
whereas this
suggesting
got strength behind it.
is we have a generic wall that would show that it's a engineered reinforced concrete core with a stone veneer or something like that, that can be then engineered and kind of fit to the site and the situation. So that no one's just gonna pull that sheet out and say, okay, here this is, like they would with the other two, which really would just be like, take this detail, give me the CAD drawing for this detail, and put it on a sheet.
right.
But they would know it's an option, that it could be, that it would be, and if it's an option they pick, it would be up to them.
Special circumstances.
And it would be different if it was a retaining wall.
It would just add,
So it'd be good to have them both.
it would just add to the vocabulary for when these discussions happen, or when these other folks are looking at, intersections and roadway redesign, and it's another, bullet in the gun, or,
Right. Diana?
I just have a question. Okay, so if Church Street, that's not a retaining wall, that stone wall? I mean, can't that, so how did that, I mean, how can it not be considered a retaining wall when it's, dropping down, I don't know how
Well,
many
it's a
feet?
retaining wall, but it's not a guardrail, so I don't know that it would hold a car. I don't know what the criteria was. I mean, there is a drop there, so you could certainly argue that it should have been a guardrail.
Yeah, how is that
But
acceptable?
it's a regular stone wall.
Right
Yeah.
now, it's just, there's a stone wall that's a little bit above grade, and then there's a dilapidated.
No, she's talking about
Further
the
down.
actual.
Oh, okay.
Stone wall.
Stone
I'm just
wall.
wondering if there's no, do we have a standard? I mean, can we arbitrarily choose what's a retaining wall, what's a stone wall, what's a guardrail? I mean, doesn't it have to be the same thing throughout the town?
You know,
They're
it strikes me
different
as kind of
applications.
seat of the pants,
It's kind of a
honestly.
question.
I don't know that they even, I'm just guessing, but I don't know that they even evaluated it for guardrail.
It was never discussed.
Maybe they need to look at that. I mean, if we're concerned about guardrail, I mean, I think there needs to be, if people think they're safe because looks like a guard, I mean, they might assume that there's a safety element to this stone wall. I would as a driver, and I just think if we're spending time evaluating our guardrail standards, I think all
Well,
like places in Weston where there are
Yeah, but that's
Period.
a stone wall that's on the distal side of the sidewalk from the road, so.
Is this the one near
It's
Coburn?
right up on the sidewalk,
Yeah.
and below it
This
is
near
quite a
you.
drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a retaining, it serves as a guardrail, whether it's
Between
actually.
the sidewalk
closed or
and
not.
the road? you mean?
Yeah,
But wait, time out. What are we trying to do? What we're trying to do is identify generic recommendations. A menu of possibilities in the appropriate installation for different conditions.
well,
But-
exactly.
But we're not evaluating every guardrail. So I'm gonna leave that to the DPW.
Yeah,
What we're doing is just
absolutely.
making recommendations to the selectmen as to which guardrails we think are appropriate in which circumstances. Because if we
No, I agree.
widen it, then, we'll never end it. So, then the question, and so I think that's where stone walls came into it. There may be places in the future where a stone wall would be the most appropriate guardrail. Without going back and assessing what somebody's already installed.
I mean, particularly that intersection, I think this is one we're talking about, Wellesley Street and Route 30, because it's flat. It doesn't drop off nearly as much as Church Street does. There's no drop. And yet
Nothing to
that's-
guard.
That's right.
What was that?
There's nothing
Nothing
to
to
guard.
guard.
Well, pretty much, but that's required, isn't that
Wellesley
the
Street
area
and
we have
Route
to?
20?
It's on Route 30 at the light.
30
This is
in
the
Wellesley.
spot where we're talking about.
There's the
doing a
guardrail
guardrail.
coming along Route 30.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what are we
It's
doing
just a
that for?
ditch.
We don't have
Right.
to-
Glorified ditch.
Go round and round.
Well, that would be part of it, and that's almost a reiteration, there's a criteria for where you put these things.
Yeah.
And I think we would look to reiterate that criteria, and not just
Right.
have them popping up.
Willy-nilly
Willy-nilly.
everywhere, yeah.
I think people will be really alarmed if we put guardrails.
Oh, I think, especially since they're proposing, it's gonna be galvanized.
Yeah, I mean.
I mean, it's just gonna, if people are just gonna go ballistic.
Church Street.
I mean, if they look at Church Street and look at this Wellesley Street intersection, they're gonna be like, what are you guys doing? You know, you
Well,
can't.
that's
So
exactly
extreme.
the point, yeah.
So, is there a range? Are there places where galvanized makes sense? I don't know, maybe not. Are there places where Core 10 makes sense?
Well, everywhere that galvanized makes sense, Core 10 makes sense. It's just that it's a little more expensive, and a lot of people think that there's something wrong with it because it's rusting.
A lot of people think it's wonderful.
Oh, I know,
Look at
I
the
know.
emails you got. I mean,
Yeah, no, I mean,
there's
it-
guys
I would
that are
always
really
choose
high
it
on-
over galvanized, but there are people that think that because it's rusty,
Right.
there's something wrong with it, it's not supposed to be
It
rusty.
it doesn't last as long, but it's kind of relative, because
Right.
it lasts, I heard it's like
40
20
years?
Well, no, it lasts half as long as galvanized.
Okay,
Galvanized lasts 40 to 50 years.
30 years.
So it
Long
lasts,
ago.
20, 25 years, which I'm still like, that's still kind of a long time. But
Everybody except Sue.
Because I'm a Terminal.
But, down by the turnpike, that's an area where I could see galvanized being installed.
Right.
And it not really bother anyone, especially, where you come off the tolls, Park Road, those types of areas.
Right.
That,
Bingo.
that, it's probably already there, we don't even notice it,
Mhm.
but that,
Right.
all kind of.
Because I think it's part of the turnpike anyway.
Right,
Right.
Yeah.
and you have trucks coming off exits and things like that, so, there would be appropriate places for that.
Sure,
Um,
but not on Wellesley Street or Church Street or.
That's about the only one I think
all those
of.
other places.
No, but that is it's a road in town. We're not saying that those roads need to have the wooden guardrails.
Right.
So, and then they're the ones in the middle. I mean, the scenic roads, you say, I assume automatically sort of say, you go to the default of the wooden steel plate back guardrails. Oh, but, for example, Church Street, they started with Core 10 rails on Church Street. They never bothered me.
No,
That
they
doesn't
didn't
bother
bother
me
me
are the
either.
galvanized ones.
Right,
So-
exactly.
Yeah, there's still some there. I went by it
Yeah,
tonight.
Right now, it's a real mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know, the core 10 just seemed to blend in for me.
Oh, absolutely.
That was,
So there may
that
be
was
places where
Canterbury's
that would
suggestion.
be,
Yeah, you didn't hear
you
that?
know, somewhere in the middle between the wood faced ones and the galvanized ones. I know that on Route 30, there are a number of core 10 guardrails on Route 30 already. Getting them close to Natick.
Yeah.
And I don't know that anybody even notices them.
Because they're
They
gorgeous.
blend, because they
Yeah.
blend in. They become a natural color. All right.
Some of
Have
the-
we beat this to
some is
first-
falling
No,
asleep.
I mean, he's looking for direction.
Yeah, so I think I have enough direct, like, we can put together the, like, cost, some unit costs to kind of help the argument, some standard details, and, you know, kind of like a siding requirements, which, again, once you get those, I think you'll want to tweak the, like, the language for, like, what we say where, you know, like, that's the part where you guys will be able to dive in and say, you know, massage the language as far as what's appropriate, what's not, what location.
But we need criteria, like you have to use this kind of guardrail when it's this speed.
Yep. And some of them, we might, like, again, the galvanized is always gonna be there. Maybe that's just, we don't do, it'd be ways for us to do details for that, because they're constantly updated by MassDOT. We'll just talk about appropriate locations for that.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But even just one more thing, like core 10 guardrails, you see them with wooden posts, you see them with core 10 posts. So it's these, you know, why?
Faisal's been talking to the Core 10 guy a lot, and again, he's been sick since last week, but he has a definite opinion on the Core 10, and I can't remember what it is, but it's a combination of the two. It's either all or one or is better than the other or something. But, you know, he's been talking to those guys, and he felt pretty good about, like, where the configuration it would work best in.
I've seen some core 10 with galvanized posts.
I think it might have been that.
Out along the curves on Church Street, that's what they are.
It might have been that, because I think it where you lose it is where the two meet.
Yeah.
Is where the
Moist
post
environment.
meets
The wood.
the wood, or the post meets the rail.
That would make sense.
But I can talk to him about it. So he comes over to my desk and starts talking about it, and sometimes just like,
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
So, right out.
That's it, cool.
all right, see ya.
Good
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you.